Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and as usual, we got a great one for you today. Today, we connect with Ben Klusmann. Ben is kind of the founder of Sodak Horizon, if you're not familiar, a YouTube channel, Instagram, all the social media things. Beautiful archery range, beautiful man, great conversation, wonderful stories. Ben, thank you, of course, for coming on the podcast, man. It was a lot of fun. It took us a lot of time to get it finally scheduled and recorded, but it was well worth the wait. For you listeners out there, thank you guys for tuning in as usual. One quick note before we kick things off is I am doing a giveaway. Just go to my Instagram, huntingstories_official. You can see it in the show notes. And go ahead and follow us and check out the first post. It's pinned to the top and it'll tell you how to enter. But that's it, guys. Let's go ahead and kick this thing off and let Ben tell you some of his stories. All right, brother. Welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. How are you today?
Good, man. How are you? I'm excited to be on.
Yeah, man. I'm glad that you're here. I think you and I tried the hardest to make this happen, and it just wouldn't. I think like at one point I lied to you and said somebody stole my podcast mic, and then storms and all sorts of stuff was happening. Either way, I'm glad we're here, and I'm glad I'm finally going to get to hear some of your stories, man.
Yeah, I think this is easily a month or two in the making. So I hope it lives up to the hype. But we definitely put enough work into it.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, I'm sure it will. I'm sure you will live up to the hype because you're doing all the heavy lifting here. But either way, let's kick this thing off the way that we always do, man. Why don't you introduce yourself real quick so the people know who they are hearing some great stories from?
Awesome. So yeah, my name is Ben. I am the founder, and I don't know what you want to call it, of Sodak Horizon. It is I don't know the best way to describe it, honestly. It's Instagram page, Facebook page, Instagram page, YouTube, TikTok, and basically I just do all things archery, all things hunting. A lot of self-film, a lot of archery stuff and tips, techniques, stuff that I'm working on, and I just try to put it out there so anybody that might need help or might need a tip can go on there and find it.
Absolutely, man. And I'll tell you this, I've told you this, but this is for the listeners. Ben has the most beautiful range at his house. Like, you post pictures and every time you do, I'm like, damn it. Like, I got a block on some grass in front of a shed on some hay. And I'm like, I gotta up my game, because you just have this like just perfect. I don't know how many like yards it is, but you got multiple targets. You got trees lining both sides. It's just gorgeous, man. And it's a pleasure to watch you shoot your bow, and not because you're involved in it, just because of where you're shooting
it. Yeah. So actually, I think my range is probably the most popular thing about any of my pages. It's a working 80-yard range, but I can get 100 yards out of it pretty easily. And so I got turkeys, I got deer, I got elk, I got a hog, and I got an antelope now. And it works out perfectly in this big windrow that I have on my property. So I think that was a selling point. We looked at the house one time, and I looked at the range and I said, that's the one. I'm not getting any better than that. So let's jump on it.
That's true, man. That's true. So I recently bought a house down here in Texas, and in the process, I was like, nope, can't shoot my bow here. Nope, can't shoot my bow here. But at no point did I actually get to like imagining what you have and being like, I could have that. So I've got a decent spot. I can shoot down like one side of my house up to like 80 yards, but it's nothing like what you got going on. Either way, man, what you're doing is super cool. I've been paying attention for a while. If you guys aren't already following Sodak Horizon or Ben, get out there and do it. I'll put links in the show notes. We'll talk maybe a little bit more at the end about all that. But let's tell the people like how long you been hunting. Let's give them a little bit of your hunting background.
So I was actually trying to figure this out a while ago. I actually found a picture from 2006, and I recognized the picture as the first deer I ever killed. So I've been hunting since 2006, but I started shooting my bow in 2004, 2005.
Okay,
and it started as a workaround, actually, because in South Dakota, you cannot hunt until you're 12 years old and taking the hunter safety course to handle a gun. And so I found archery. There was no regulation like that. The regulation was you had to be able to pull back 40 pounds. So that was my workaround. I started hunting with a bow when I was like 10 or 11. That's awesome. When I was 12, I went and took a hunter safety course. And then, because they had a bow hunter safety course that they offered at Sportsman's Warehouse. And so me and my dad, we did that before I could take my hunter safety course. And I think I killed a deer before most people started rifle hunting. And went all downhill from there.
Yeah. So that's amazing that you started with archery just to start hunting earlier because you couldn't hunt early enough with a rifle. That's the purest answer I've ever heard to like why you started archery. Like normally people are like, I just, picked it up here, there. So that's what someone else did. But you're like, no, I had to get out there as quickly as possible.
Well, it's the clearest memory I think I have, and I don't have very many clear ones, but we were watching Michael Waddell on Bone Collectors, and he was archery hunting elk. And I remember looking at my dad going, you can shoot an elk with a bow? Like I didn't think you could do that. And he goes, yeah, I think you can pretty much shoot anything with the bow. And I went, I'm gonna start bow hunting.
Yeah.
And he went, well, I mean, if you really want to, I got an old recurve down in the basement. We can break it out. And I said, let's do it. Let's break it out. So after the show ended, I would not stop nagging him until he went downstairs and found this old bear recurve that he had from Boy Scouts 30, 40 years ago. And he was like, here you go, you can have it. So we took it into a pro shop and they got a new string on it and they made sure it was sound and everything and stacked up 3 hay bales in the backyard and started
That's
shooting.
awesome. That's awesome. Do you still have that bow?
Yeah, hanging in my garage, still shooting with it too.
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. That's cool. So your dad, was he a hunter? Was his dad a hunter? Like, does it just come down in the lineage or?
So my dad was a rifle hunter.
Okay.
He'd go out once or twice a year, shoot a deer with his rifle and call it a day. He also got pretty big into pheasant hunting, which is kind of where I also cut my teeth on because we'd have pheasant dogs. So we'd have 2 or 3 dogs that we had. I actually raised one from 8 weeks old and trained him and everything. That was my high school project. And so we were into pheasant hunting hard. And then when I wanted to get into bow hunting, my dad was like, sure, let's do it. So we started with the recurve. And then when I finally killed a rabbit, that was the first kill I ever had. And it was the summer I started with my recurve. And so the deal was I couldn't get a compound bow until I had mastered the recurve. And so that was my test. So I killed a rabbit, and then next day we went out and bought a compound bow. And then a neighborhood guy came over and showed me how to shoot. And then a couple days later, my dad went out and bought a compound bow. And yeah, so we were first generation archery hunters. We didn't have any, it was a lot of trial and error, broadheads, arrows. We weren't building arrows. We weren't doing anything like that. It was just, this is what works. We're going to shoot until we can hit paper plates. And we started at 10 yards and 20 yards, and then 30 yards. And we were hitting 30 yards going, ooh, look at us, we can shoot 30 yards. And so, it just kind of spiraled from there. We kind of both got the bug. And my dad's missed a few dandies. I've missed a few dandies. And yeah, just I don't even know how many years. It's like 15 or more years, I think. I usually just say 15-ish. But I didn't really start getting into like the whole archery aspect of hunting until maybe 5 years ago.
Oh, interesting. What do you think was that catalyst?
Well, it was honestly, so I got married. I got out of the army. I got married, and we found out we were pregnant, so we bought a house. And that was kind of always the thing holding me back. It's like I don't have a house. I can't really dive into this stuff without a house. And so we bought a house, and I was like, I'm going to buy a fletching jig. So I started building arrows, and then after I got all mixed up in FOC and heavy and light and different bang configurations and wraps and no wraps, I was like, hey, I want to put a bow together. So I ordered a bow and I ordered some replacement parts and I put the sight on, and I still had to go to the pro shop to put the peep in and everything, but I learned how to tie a D loop and put everything on and sighted it in and everything. And then I was like, hey, that's not that hard. I'm going to buy a press. So I bought a press and then started just doing everything myself.
There you go. That's awesome. Yeah, I bought a one of those like quick, easy ones for fletching, and I was like, ooh, I felt that itch being like, what do I get next? And I was like, let's just calm down a second here. I don't need a bow press right now. Let me just fletch some arrows. It's just like, it's very calming. I'd sit there and I'll, watch some TV or whatever. Maybe even read a book and then like step away and do a couple of arrows. And it's pretty great, except for when one of your arrows, one of those fletchings rips off and you're like, who put those together? Damn it. Which has happened a couple of times. Either way, we're in the woods here, so let's bring it back and let's set the stage for your first story, Ben. What I don't know if you have any in mind, but let us know kind of where you are. What you're hunting. I'm assuming it's with a bow, and I'll let you share the details.
Yeah. So honestly, the first year I ever shot kind of rings a bell to me. So it was uh, oh 2006, September or August. Had to be September because that's when the season opens. But my dad let me skip school because we wanted to get out early into the stand and go deer hunting. So I skipped school, I skipped football practice, skipped all of it. We're driving out to the stand, and on the side of the road of the property that we can hunt, there's three deer standing in the cornfield. So I'm like, can we do that? He's like, yeah, you just have to be out of the ditch. Like you have to be out of the legal shooting lane. It's on property that we have access to hunt. You can definitely do that. So we pulled over. They're right in front of us, maybe 40 yards in front of us. I get out. I get my bow out of the back of the truck. I walk all the way into the cornfield. So I'm out of the public right away. Pull back, shoot 20 yards, just smoke this doe. And
It's just that easy.
that was it. That was it. And so we tracked her through the cornfield and everything and found her. And I was just stoked. I couldn't believe what just happened.
Yeah. And this is when you said you were like 10, right?
Yeah, I was really young. 2006 or 2005, I want to say somewhere in there. I think it was 2006.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we drug her out and took her home, and we get home, and my mom's like, "You guys are done already?" And Dad's like, "Yeah, you already shot one." So we, gutted it out and skinned her up and brought her to the processing plant. That was a hook. And my dad was so stoked. We'd never been that close to animals before.
I bet.
Never killed anything with a bow. I mean, we used to go on rabbit runs around town to help little old ladies with rabbits that were in like gardens and stuff. But to kill a deer like that was something that for the year prior, it was like a dream. You know what I mean? It was like, something me and my dad talked about, it was things that we fantasized about. It wasn't real. And then when you actually get your hands on that first kill, you're like, this is doable. I can do this. I can do this. Let's go.
Most of the people there's two ways that this goes from this point on in your hunting career. I've heard of people have stories like this where it's just like it's always that easy. I'm trying to remember his name. I'll get back to it. But then there's the other case where it's never the same again, right? It's never that easy again to just like pull over, walk 20 yards, and then pull your bow back and boom. So which path did you end up taking after that? Have you had some struggles, or has it always been pretty easy for you?
It's kind of been easy. Like looking back on it. So in South Dakota for a long time, you could get 3 tags. You could get 2 antlerless tags and then 1 meat tag for archery. Okay. And so I had really good relationships with a lot of farmers around town. And so I would go out, and I'd sit a couple nights after school at this place and a couple nights after school at this place. And whichever place I got a first shot at, I would shoot the first deer I seen. And then, the second year I might be a little more picky on because I only have 1 antlerless tag left. But then it never really mattered because I would always just see deer. So the first deer that I see, I would shoot because I'm trying to get rid of them on these farmers' property. And then I wait for a buck to walk by, and I've shot a few nice bucks. A couple of them I got really lucky on. One of the biggest bucks I've shot, I was sleeping in the tree stand, and I woke up just violently, and there was a buck walking right in front of me at 15 yards. So I grabbed everything, shot him at 15 yards, and he ran 30 yards and fell over dead. And I was like still waking up. I was like, "What just happened? Like, how did that just happen?"
Let me ask you: were you like harnessed in or something like that? I just did my first ever hunt in a tree stand, and I did not have any kind of harness. And good God, was I trying not to fall asleep? It was terrifying.
So I will say that the particular stand that I was hunting in was about 8 feet off the ground, maybe.
Okay.
And so no, I wasn't harnessed in there. And a lot of the stands that we have. We actually just got some really big telephone poles put up on the property. So we have tree stands leaned against those at like 15 or 20 feet. Those ones I harness myself in it. But most of them were like 10 feet off the ground. And so it's like, I know I probably should because, I have 3 kids and a wife and, falling out of the tree stand isn't really on my to-do list, but I'm not. I don't use harness.
Yeah, I was dozing hard because I was at this group. We were staying up till 1 in the morning, just having conversations, and then we were waking up at 5 to go hunt. And I'm sitting there like, oh God, like really struggling. So I think if I'm gonna do more tree stand hunting, I need to get better night's sleep.
See, and that's something I perfected early on is being able to sleep in a tree stand. So you have to make sure you have a 2-man stand is what we always had. And then you have to make sure that your knees are just at the lip. So your feet are just at the front edge. And then you can just kind of settle right in and lean your head back. Then if you do wake up, you don't have to move anymore. You can see your whole.
Yeah.
You got to practice.
Yeah, the tree stand I was in, it was not that sturdy. I was just basically sitting on a plank of wood with like nothing to my left, nothing to my right, nothing in front of me. I had zero margin for error. I was just like, all right, just stay alive. My wife won't be. I mean, I won't be happy if I come back from this hunting trip with a broken leg or neck. So either way, okay.
Those are the tree stands you need harnesses for. Just so you know.
Yeah, I feel like that it was a guided hunt. Maybe they should have been provided. Either way, I still had a good time. Got on. We were there for hogs and didn't see a damn hog, but did get on some turkeys and had some fun running around after them. So, but all right, Ben, what else you got for us? What other stories? That's a pretty crazy story about literally just walking out of your car. I don't know if I'd believe it if you didn't tell me, but
You know, if I didn't do it, I wouldn't believe it. If I'm being 100% honest with you, it was nuts. Oh man, I got a lot. First turkey, that was a pretty fun one. It was I don't even know the year it was. I'm really bad with dates and stuff, so don't hold me to them.
yeah.
This was my senior year of high school, and it was the only weekend that I could go out. We used to go out to the Black Hills, which is a 7-hour drive from where I'm at,
Okay.
and we were supposed to go out the weekend after, but there's a huge blizzard rolling in, and so we were like, we're not making that trip out. We're just going to try to go in early. And this was the only other weekend I could do it, you know, senior prom and graduation and all that junk that my mom didn't want me to miss. So we were like, me and my dad, he's like, okay, I'll call you out of school for 3 days. We're leaving on a Tuesday night. We'll get there. We'll hunt all day Wednesday, all day Thursday. And then if we're not tagged out yet, we'll hunt Friday and come home Friday because the blizzard's supposed to hit Saturday. So we, not thinking we were going to hit any snow, we just threw everything in as fast as we could. Shotgun shells, camo, you know, just our go bag type of stuff. We're booking it out to the hills, get there, everything's good, we're solid, good to go. We realized we forgot all of our rain gear, which will be important. So the next morning we get up bright and early and we go out hunting. Sun comes up and the snow comes down. It starts sleeting sideways snow. We're freezing our butts off because it's like the wet snow that is actually, it's like rain, but it's cold. So it's like ice. And it just soaks us to the bone. We're miserable. So, you know, 10 o'clock, we're wearing long sleeve shirts and jeans, you know, camo pants because we didn't bring any other clothing. Go down to the truck. We're miserable. We grab lunch and we're like, you know, maybe we should just call it a day. Maybe this just isn't our day. As we say that, it stops raining. So we're like, okay, let's go up. We're going to make the trek again, like a mile, maybe two into where we're hunting. So we're like, let's do it. We only got 3 days. We'll get back to the hotel early tonight. We'll get everything in the dryer, get everything dried off. No big deal. This hotel had a washer and dryer that was available. That's something that we knew. So we head back up and we get to the top of this hill and you know, we're talking about strategy, where we should go set up, where we should be calling from. I let out a little locator. Don't hear nothing. So I'm like, no, let's just head this way. So we start walking and my dad thinks he hears something behind us. So he stops and I'm like trying to get to the tree line so I can call. And as I'm getting to the tree line, I see a tom step out from behind this tree and just kind of look at me. You know how toms do and they're doing nothing. So I'm like, turkey, blasted, roll it. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, I cannot believe that just happened. Like, this is the most miserable day ever. As I'm turning around to yell at my dad that I just shot a huge turkey, 25 or 30 more run in between me and him.
No
now,
shit.
Shotgun in South Dakota, you can get 2 shotgun tags in South Dakota. And so I'm like, I'm not even thinking about shooting. I don't know why. It never crossed my mind. I'm literally like, I sling my gun and I'm just like, what are all these turkeys doing?
I have killed your king. Worship me.
Exactly. And so I'm like looking at my dad, and he's sitting there just like pounding on this gun. He's just like pounding on it. And I'm like, shoot! Why aren't you shooting? Shoot! Every one of them gets away. They all run away. They're however far away. And I walk up to him like, you didn't see those turkeys or what? And his gun jammed. First time his gun has ever jammed, ever.
No way.
Never jammed before. So he's torqued off. He's slamming this thing around. And I'm like, well, I shot one, so let's go find it. So we go and sit right there. Of course, it was like a 20, 25-yard shot. And I'm just stoked. This got a big old long beard, nice, beautiful fan, just this big old heavy top. So he's like, all right, I'm done for the day. Let's just go back, regroup. Let's get this bird on ice. Let's get ready to go. So I was like, yeah, perfect. That's cool. We get back to the hotel, dry everything out, go grab some dinner, and we're toast. We were hiking up and down these mountains all day, and Black Hills elevation changes from like where we're at, it's like 1,100 feet, maybe 1,200 feet, and the Black Hills gets to like 9,000 to 11,000.
Were you hunting Miriam's?
Yeah.
Man, one of the hardest hunts I've ever been on was a Miriam turkey hunt. Like those mountain birds, man, those are not easy hunts. You're not just sitting in a blind. You are going after it. So I
got to. If you don't go after them, you're never going to see them. And so, we get back to the hotel and we're like, all right, birds on ice. Let's just relax. Let's have a good evening. We're just going to chill. We're both out early. Wake up, same thing in the morning, get out there. We did go to Walmart and buy ponchos because we're at least not going to get wet. Well, it snowed. So by the time sunrise hit, there was an inch of snow on the ground, and we're just freezing. And so it's like, I don't know, 8:39, and I stand up and I'm talking to him, and I'm like, well, it looks like the forecast was wrong. The blizzard's here now. It's still snowing. What do you want to do? I said, flat out, I want to get you a bird, but I'm squared. Like, I filled one tag. I'm good with that. Like, let's take this thing home. And he's like, yeah, I'm done with it. Let's at least go back to the hotel for a little while to warm up. Maybe the sun will come out, whatever. So we stand up, and I'm looking over this ridge, and I'm just like, that's odd. There's something out in that field. This is a cow pasture, by the way. So he's like, yeah, they're cows. What do you expect? There's cows up there. No big deal. I'm like, no, they're smaller than
freezing
cows.
And frustrated.
Yeah. Like, they're smaller than cows, Dad. These are not cows. So I pull up binos, which I had these crappy little Walmart binos. So I'm like, I can't see anything. Let's just head down slowly and quietly and see what it is. Turns out there's a whole bunch of turkeys strutting in this open field in the middle of nowhere. So I'm like, all right, let's figure out a game plan. So we end up working to this fence line, doing a belly crawl in at least an inch, possibly more snow, while it's all slushy because it was raining the day before. Maybe a mile and a half, because all these toms are strutting on this flat plain, and we're going to the only point of photography that we'll still be able to see them. So we get there, and it's right next to this creek, and there's like this tree, and then there's like this big dugout where the water kind of eroded it. So I hunker in there, and my dad pops up maybe 5 feet in front of me, and I crawl up and I set this hen decoy right on the ridge. Like we can see nothing past this ridge but this hen decoy. So I'm like, all right, Pop, you ready? And he's like, yeah, I'm ready. So I start calling, and immediately these birds start firing off of us. And I can see them up on the opposing hill. Like they're at least a mile, maybe two away. They're probably not that far. That's an exaggeration. But they're a ways up this ridge. So I start calling, and they just fire off. And one of them turns around, and then two of them turn around, and then three of them turn around, and they're coming. And I'm like, I didn't expect that to work. So I'm sitting there calling, and they're calling, and I'm calling, and they're calling, and I'm calling, and they're calling. And my dad turns around and he's like, do you know what you're doing? And I was like, no, but it's working. Leave me alone and watch what they're doing. Like, they're going to come and we're going to shoot one. This is going to happen. This is like Michael Liddell on Turkey Tour. This is going to happen. And so, we're sitting there, and I do one more call and nothing, radio silence. So I'm like, oh, great. I messed it up. And now all I'm going to hear for the whole car ride home is you overcalled and you messed it up. And we almost had 3 turkeys come in. And then out of nowhere, this head just pops up right by the hen decoy. And I'm like, oh, it's right there. Holy smokes, it worked. Boom. My dad just lights it up. So we both shoot up. We're like, yes, let's get these birds. So we're going to run over the hill and shoot another one, right? The turkey hits the ground. We get up to the hill. It rolls onto its feet, gets up, one big flap of his wings, and he's up. Dad shoots, misses. I shoot, misses. I try to shoot again, gun jams. I'm out. Dad has one shell left, shoots, boom, drops him right in the middle of this standing body of water that had just had the ice broken off of it because of the bird falling on. So I'm like, you shot a turkey. Let's go get it. And I was gonna go jump in and get it because I'm the younger one, and he's like, no, I got this. So stoked right now. So he tries to jump over this creek, misguides the angle, and sinks knee deep into this water. Climbs
Oh,
over the creek. Then he has to wade almost waist deep into this little standing body of water to get the turkey. Then he has to wade back out, does the exact same thing back, and this bird is even bigger than the bird that I shot the other day. And he's just sitting there, and I'm like, we should start heading back to the truck. And he's just like ignoring me. He's just so like just staring at this bird because he'd been hunting.
frozen from the waist
We've been
down.
doing turkey hunting. Yeah, we've been doing turkey hunting for like 10 years, and he's never shot a bird just because
no way.
he's a great dad, and so he's always like, no, like you take the first shot, like you shoot, and I'll maybe follow up. And so he's been so hard and relentlessly trying to get me turkeys that this is the first one he's ever shot. And so the funniest part is before he even left to go on here, he's like, I'm so glad that I get to be done turkey hunting after this year. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you're 18. You're moving out of the house. I don't have to do this jump with you anymore. I don't want to go turkey hunting. And I told him, I said, you're just mad because you haven't shot one yet. He's like, yeah, well, I haven't shot one yet. I'm never going to. It doesn't matter. And so he's holding this bird just like a kid, just like, I can't believe I just shot this turkey. So finally, he like thaws enough to realize that he's shivering. His lips are turning blue. So we book it back to the truck. We get in, and he's like, I'm good if you're good. And I was like, let's go home, dude. And we went back to the hotel, packed our stuff, changed, and we were gone. Okay. And the whole ride home, he's just stoked. He has that bird mounted in his living room.
Oh, yeah.
And he
how
always
big was
said, it was, he had probably inch and a half spurs and a
That's
good
big
solid.
for Miriam. Those birds don't get very big spurs.
No, it was a good sized spur. His beard was probably 10, 11 inches. It was a big bird. It was easily 18 pounds, maybe even 19. It was a big bird. And he was just stoked. And so that's anytime somebody comes over and sees the turkey mount, he's like, yep, that's the only bird I've ever got. The biggest one we've ever shot.
Yeah, once I had the record, I didn't need to go back,
Yeah, exactly.
Leave some for everybody else.
Yeah, and it was such a cool hunt because, like, I'm not a great turkey caller by any means. I've dabbled around with it. That was always the draw for turkeys for me. Being able to call them and like get a response and have conversation and try to convince them that I'm some hot steamy chick that wants your number and have to bring them in and everything.
Yeah.
That's like the fun part for me with turkey hunting. And so to be able to do that and have my dad's only bird that he's ever shot be the one that I called in, in the same trip that I shot a turkey, it wasn't a calling turkey, but it was a great memory.
That's awesome, man. Awesome. That's so awesome. Yeah. I really want to get into bow hunting turkeys, but I also I just can't, I'm a decent elk caller with a diaphragm call, but for some reason throw a turkey call in, I can't do anything except for like, it's the call that turkeys make when they're like, we need to get out of here. And I'm like, that call's not going to do me any good. Right?
It's a long call.
Right.
Call.
So like you find me walking around. Fortunately, I got my bow hitch, right? So I've got my bow on my bag hanging there, and then I've got my slate call. But it's hard to rock a slate call and be an archer for turkeys. I'll tell you that. So I'm still working on it.
Kill. I just got my first turkey kill with a bow this year.
You want to?
I've been hunting for 5 years.
I'll tell you mine. I've told it on the podcast before.
Yeah.
But you go ahead, and then I'll tell you my one archery turkey kill.
Oh man, it was awesome. So we were. I got a little piece of private land that I got permission on down about an hour away. And this is the best year of turkey hunting we've ever had. So we've been out 8 times this year, and out of the 8 times, only 1 time we saw no birds. Every other time we saw birds that were in range, that were definitely killable birds. We just messed up, or it just didn't work out the right way. So opening morning, we go out, and me and my buddy are out, and this is his second year turkey hunting. He just completed his first full archery season, so he's starting his second year of archery hunting. And he's killed 2 deer, first 2 deer, a buck and a doe. And then this was his second year turkey hunting. So I was like, yeah, man, like, come on in, like, let's get you a turkey. So opening morning, like, picture perfect. These 2 huge long beards come in. And we watch them come down this hill and they flatten out and they circle right in and they're sitting at 14, 15 yards, just full strut looking at us. I got the camera rolling. My buddy's at full draw. And I'm like, whenever you're ready, dude, shoot. He laces this one. And I'm freaking out. He's like, I shot the one on the right. I shot the one on the right. And I'm like, perfect. This is great. He shot the one on the left. Sorry. Shot the one on the left. I shot the one on the left. And I'm like, awesome, dude. That's perfect. So we go out. Can't find his arrow. Not a drop of blood. Almost no feathers. We're just like, what happened? So we go back, review the tape, find the arrow, no blood on the arrow. And I'm like, all right, it's full strut. You probably just hit left, hit right, something. Well, in reviewing the tape, we realized that we were looking at the wrong bird. He shot the one on the right, but he was so excited, he thought it was the one on the left. So then we go back out and we retrace where this turkey went. Nothing, no blood, no nothing. So we're like, all right, cut losses. Let's just, call it for the day. So then fast forward 3 weeks, we're out and it's up in a completely different spot. And my buddy's like, hey man, like if we see any turkeys today, like I want you to take the first shot because, I already had a shot and I missed. And I just think you should take the first shot. And I was like, I'll tell you what, how about we just assume that both of us are not going to have shots and we'll decide when the turkeys come in who gets the shot because that's, you face one way, I face one way, and then whoever has a shot gets a shot. So we had some deer come in, some doe fawn pairs came in like 5-6 yards away from us, walking to the decoys. Off to the distance, we see a couple hens working, 30 yards away. And I'm like, all right, good morning already. No big deal. I'm looking at the hen. And it's like 8:30, and I'm like, everything's quieted down. There's no sound. There's nothing. The hen is walking off. And I turned to my buddy to say, hey, let's like think about packing up soon. Like, let's maybe hit the road. And over his shoulder, out the window, I see two jakes. And they're coming right in. They're already at like 7-8 yards. And I'm like, turkey's right there. So I am like readjusting myself because I'm like, they're going to come right in here. The leading one is going to walk right into my buddy's zone, and the other one's going to walk right into mine. So I'm like getting prepared. And they do exactly what they're supposed to do. The first one comes right into my zone, and I'm like, okay, keep walking. And then my buddy goes, I was like, okay, I'm going to pull back. And then if he, tries to move, then I'll be able to kill him. Well, I pull back, takes 2 more steps, and then he starts veering the other way. The other one has already worked his way up the hill. So the other one's not coming in. So I'm like, all right. I'm like leaning back out of the chair, trying to like get out of the window because he's like veering his way out. And I'm just like, pray to God, pray to the Lord, this is going to work. Boom, drill him right between the shoulder blades, gets stuck to a tree, breaks my arrow, flops around a little bit, it's dead. I'm like, perfect. That just happened? How does that even happen? We're like getting ready to leave. So then I'm like, hey, I see the other one. So I unzip the window for the blind and I'm like, get over here. So we're like making a whole bunch of ruckus trying to get out of the way so he can get on his knee and get a shot off. Well, he ranged the wrong distance. We thought he was like 30 yards, and turns out he was like maybe 35. Yeah. And so he shot low, missed, and he ran off. So I'm like, it happens. It's hunting. Yep. But I run up and I'm just so stoked. First thing I do is make sure it has a beard because the tag is a male turkey. It can't be a female turkey. So I'm
like, if it's a bearded female? Because I know it's like 1 out of every 20 or something.
Says a male turkey.
Oh, okay, interesting.
And that's what I thought too. So I'm like, okay, I mean, it describes it as like a white, blue, red head and has a beard. And there's some hens that do have a beard, and I've seen some with spurs even. So I mean, it might be open to interpretation. I decided that I didn't want to shoot a bearded hen just because I actually just watched a video of a dude like bouncing a bearded hen, and she had like 10 or 12 eggs that were like still inside of her. Yeah. And so I was like, it'd be really cool to shoot a bearded hen, but she's still a hen and she's still laying eggs. And the population around my parts is not good enough to be okay doing that. So, but yeah, has this dinky little, it's hanging at probably a 2-inch beard, maybe a little more.
Your beard's bigger than its beard.
Yes. I told my buddy that I was like, dude, I don't even care. I've been slaving away on turkeys for 5 years. This is the first patch of private land I've had any success on. And this is the second year hunting it that we've had any success on. So I'm like, if it's a legal bird, I'm shooting it. I advise you do the same thing.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
awesome,
was
man.
awesome.
Well, congratulations on your first archery turkey. I'll tell you my story. And to the listeners, if you've already heard this, sorry. Hopefully I tell it roughly the same as the previous times I've told it so that you guys don't call me out on that shit. But so this is going to be my second time turkey hunting. My first one's that one time in Western Colorado hunting Merriam's, putting on 15 miles on our feet and 100 miles in the truck and just tough hunt. This one is in Texas. I've moved to Texas at this point in 2020, right when COVID hits. And I've got a buddy that I literally saw on Facebook. He was like, hey, looking for someone to hunt with. And I was like, I'm not a good hunter, but I'm happy to take you along and teach you what I know. So him and I, we go to get Mexican food. You know, we break bread over Mexican food and we become buds. So he's like, well, I work at this spot. I don't know exactly what he was doing there, but it was, he's like, there's turkeys everywhere and no one hunts the turkeys. Everybody just hunts the deer. And they said I can hunt it. And I was like, all right, well, let's do it. Like, if you can get us into some private land, I'll show you what I know and we'll see if it works. So we get there. And this is just to explain how weird this day was. It started off, we're going to his place of work. And I'm sitting there at the gate waiting for him to show up. And he calls me and he's like, hey, man, I'm lost. Can you give me directions? And I'm like, this is your work. Like, you go here every day. I just went to the pin that you gave me. So like, I was like, I don't know. First, second start of the north, straight on till morning. I don't know what you want me to tell you right now, man. I'm like, just get here. So he shows up like 45 minutes late because he gets lost going to work. I don't know, maybe because the sun wasn't up. Either way, we get there.
Regular thing? Is that regular? I don't know how he has a job. Awesome.
I don't know. Either way, he's moved to Montana. He's an elk hunter now. He's an awesome guy. But this morning, I was just like, oh god. Either way, we pull our trucks in, long road along this a fence line that's off the property, opens up to a field. That field has an obvious feeder in it, and we go over to what looks like a big water plant, and we park by the water plant. And we get out, and there's turkeys everywhere. Like, we can just hear them everywhere. And I'm like, ooh, this is exciting. So I grab my gear, and we head over. And he's like, the guys told me just set up near that feeder. They come in every day. So we run in there. The sun's kind of cresting at this point, so it's brighter than I want it to be. The birds probably are starting to come down, and we're still rustling in there. But either way, I get in there, and I got a couple decoys. I throw a couple hen decoys and a Jake decoy. And then I've got this like blind that's basically just a piece of camo fabric that's 2 feet tall. You can stretch it out to 8 feet. And mind you, this is COVID. That's why we drove different cars. No one really knew what you were supposed to do. So we're sitting like 6 feet apart behind this thing. We sit there all day. Nothing. Like, I'm calling, and it gets to the point where I'm like, all right, well, we've been sitting here, nothing's calling back. There's turkey somewhere. I was like, let's go walk the property because it's a pretty big wooded property. I was like, let's go check it out. So we're walking around, and eventually we get back to the trucks to have snacks or lunch or whatever, and this other truck comes in, and they're like, hey, guys, there's some turkeys over there, because they know where they're hunting, and we're like, no, those are our decoys. He's like, no, there's turkeys over there. Like, no, those are our decoys. I left 3 decoys out. He's like, no, there's a big turkey amongst your decoys. And we're like, what? So I'm like, all right, here's the plan. we kind of like poke around the corner. We could see him. It's maybe a quarter of a mile, if not less, to the other side of the property. And I'm like, okay, see him. I was like, you guys drove right by him. Like, yeah, we drove right by him. I was like, here's the plan, buddy. You take your car and just drive us right by him. I'm going to sit in the back of the car. When we're as close as you think we can get, stop, and I'll drill him with my bow. And he's like, all right, perfect. So this is our plan, right? So we're going. I get in the back of the car. I've got my bow. I arrow nocked. I'm sitting there with my legs hanging off the back of the truck, ready to just basically hop down, pull, dead turkey. We're getting close. We're getting closer to the tree and the feeder. We're getting closer. We're getting closer. We're actually now getting farther. We're getting farther. We're driving around, and he parks behind like the only berm. So he basically just like goes and just, I don't know what he was thinking, completely ignores the plan, drives somewhere else, and then parks and gets out and says, okay, now what do we do? And I'm like, what the, like, God, okay. I don't know. I was like, I don't know, man. And then at this point, the guy that told us, he's with 3 workers, Mexican gentlemen, don't speak any English. They come in on their truck, which they're in the back of like a box truck. And at that point, the turkey had just crossed over the road into the woods. So they drive up, park in between the feeder and the woods, and then we're on the other side of the feeder. And these 3 Mexicans jump out and chase the turkey. like just start running after him into the woods. And so I'm sitting there like, what the hell is going on? And I'm like, all right, well, let's go. So we jump into the woods too, and we start chasing the turkey. And I'm calling. And here's the weird thing: we never see another human. Like we see those three guys run into the woods. We don't see anyone else ever again. It takes us like 45 seconds to get over there. We don't see any of them at all at any point. But we get into the woods. We walk around for a while. We're feeling pretty defeated. We're seeing deer, which is cool, but it's not deer season. So we walk back, and I'm like, all right, man. I was like, I got maybe half an hour. I'm going to sit here, and then I actually have to run. And so then I'll let you keep the stuff because he can hunt later that night. So we just sit down, and I do my call, and we hear gobble. And down the road where we had parked initially, not the second parking, but the first parking, we see a tom. And he is, again, quarter of a mile down this road. And so I'm just, and he's just coming right in, just coming straight to us, straight down the road like turkeys do, just the easiest possible path. And I'm like, all right, here's the deal. And at this point, I'm a super novice archer, right? Like, I didn't know any better, but I had arrows that were not the correct spine, so they're coming out like wah, wah, wah. Just everything that could be wrong was basically wrong with my setup either way. I'm like, all right, man, if I miss, have your gun ready because I want you to shoot it if you don't see my arrow hit it. I was like, we're basically both going to take a shot. So I give him the call, and over the course of the day, I taught him how to use the slate call. So he's at this point, and I got my arrow knocked. The turkey comes right in, perfect spot, and I draw back perfectly right when it's behind the little chunk of the feeder. And as I draw back, my arrow falls off the nock. And so now I'm full draw with my buddy just over here, and I'm like, psst, psst, like trying to get his attention. And he's like, oh. And so he crawls over to me because he's from 6 feet away, and he takes my arrow and he puts it on my string. And I'm like, yes. But he doesn't let go of my arrow. Now he's like sitting there holding my arrow and looking at the bird. And I'm like, let go of my arrow, man. Like, let go. And so he finally lets go, and I just let it go. And I don't know if it was a good shot or a bad shot. I was kind of aiming center mass. I think the bird dropped but lifted its head and basically just took its head. I had like a 1-inch diameter cut, and so it didn't even take the whole head because the neck was thicker than the actual arrow, but the bird was down immediately. So yeah, that was my first Rio. Just ridiculous story, like the whole day. And then the story, like I said, it felt weird from the get-go when he couldn't find his own place of work. But later that day, he put the stuff back up for the evening hunt, and with 2 shots, killed 3 jakes. Like he was sitting there, he's calling. 3 jakes came in. He took a shot. 2 of them dropped, and the third one just hung out. So he took the third one. And in Texas, you get like 4 tags or something like that.
Oh.
So I was like, well, it's legal. I was like, from a legality standpoint, I'm not sure anyone has ever done what you just did, which is kill 3 turkeys basically instantly like that. So crazy day. Either way, my one turkey, it was the biggest bird I've ever killed. And I would say it was probably 5 pounds shy of all the weight of all 3 of his birds.
So you got that going for you, though. So that's good.
Right. Either way, we still ate well, and it's one of my favorite stories. It's just like how many things could go wrong, and it still ended up being all right. So that's my turkey story. That being said, man, we're coming up here on the time that I asked of you. Do you have more stories for you? Because like I always say, I'm not going to kick you out. I'll listen all night. But tell me if you got more you can tell.
I got one really good story that is
perfect.
Probably the most embarrassing story that I have, and
yes, those
probably the coolest story that I have.
Okay,
and it's kind of 2 stories into one. It's reflective of the last season that we just wrapped up. So I live in the Sioux Falls area of South Dakota. So at Sioux Falls, we have some ducks, we have pheasants, we have whitetail. If we want antelope, mule deer, elk, we have to go west river, which is, antelope's closer to Rapid City, mule deer you can find in Pierre, and then elk is obviously out by Rapid City too. So
yeah,
I make 1 big heavy trip out to Rapid City every year, and that's my day to go antelope hunting. So I leave at like 11:30, 12 o'clock a.m., p.m., at night, midnight, and I drive the entire night till morning. I get to Rabbit City, and that's about sunrise, and then I hunt all day long, and then between 3 and 7, depending on how tired I am, I pack up and I head back home. So I get home. I call it my 24-hour trips. So this one particular trip, I had just actually. So last year, side note, last year I got a really cool opportunity to partner with Over the Edge Outdoors and Hell's Canyon Bow Hunting Ranch. And I got the opportunity to give away 3 hunting spots for veterans
that's cool.
at this bow hunting ranch. Only bow hunting. It's like 25,000 acres, and it's all bow hunting, nothing else. So I got to give away 3 spots to this antelope camp. And the owner offered me a spot to come and kind of help guide and hang out. So I got to go 4 days on that hunting trip. And so that was kind of my antelope trip for the year. Nobody ended up taking out, but it was a really good time and a lot of good vets. And, it was just really cool to be able to do that for the veteran community. So after that, I'm talking to my wife and I'm like, I don't feel like my antelope season's over. Like, you got to give me one more chance. And she's like, okay, I'll see what I can do. And, we'll make something work. Because mind you, those trips are on like Friday night into Saturday. So the 1 day a week that I'm, 2 days a week that I'm home, I don't work Friday or I don't work Saturday or Sunday. So it's like one of those days is an entire day of me being gone. And then the other day is pretty much a recovery day. So I'm not a huge help to my wife with 3 kids for those 2 days. But she caved and she's like, okay, you can go out this weekend, this day. It'll be your last trip out west, so make it count. And I'm like, okay, cool. The next morning I wake up and I'm like, sweetheart, I have to tell you this. I had a dream. Okay. God sent me a vision of how I'm going to fill my archery tag. And she immediately goes, shut up. You're so full of it. And I was like, just listen to me. At 8:30, I am going to shoot an antelope at 40 yards. And then I'm going to come home for the day. That's it. And she's like, okay, sure, whatever. I'm like, well, I'm telling you this for a reason, because when this happens, I need you to know that God has given me this as a vision that I need to go out antelope hunting one more time. So, honey, if you have any regard about me not going out antelope hunting, you can't have it anymore. Because God is telling me that I have to go out on this antelope trip because he's going to let me shoot a goat at 40 yards at 8:30 in the morning. So she's like, all right, cool.
I want to make sure I'm hearing you right. Is it 4 or 40?
40.
Okay.
40 yards.
The second time, I was like, wait, did he say 4?
No.
40. Okay. That's much more realistic. But okay,
That'd
go ahead.
So I'm like, all right, this is good. So I have a couple buddies that one of them comes out hunting once in a while. He's an archer, but he's had some health issues, so he's not actively shooting the bow right now. And then another buddy had a West River deer tag, so he came out, and I was like, yeah, if you see muleys, feel free, take your shot, whatever. And then I met another buddy out there who he actually runs Sodak Adventures. He's a really good photographer, a really good guide. And he's grown to be a really good friend of mine. So he meets us out there and we all pile in my truck and we're heading out. And he's like, all right, well, there's a couple spots that I really want to look at. Mind you, it's like 6:15, 6:30. Sunrise is just coming up. We're just fueling up. We're ready to go. We get out there and he's like pulling up Onyx. And he's like, yeah, there's one spot I want to check that if there's nothing there, that's fine. But he waterfowls full time, or he's a waterfowl guide / videographer full time. So he's like, there's this field I need to check to see if there's water in the stock dam. If there is, then that's a field we're going to be hunting this year. If there's not, then no big deal. So I was like, okay, cool. So we pull it to this field and there's 20 goats in this field working to this stock dam. And so I'm like, okay, like public property. We have Onyx pulled up, plug for Onyx. You guys are amazing. If anybody from Onyx watches this, Onyx is amazing. And it's an amazing app and I definitely recommend getting it. So I'm like looking and I'm like, I find the stock dam on the satellite image. And I'm like, oh, that's public land. I can definitely get in there. So I'm like planning this stock out. And my buddy's like, dude, just do it. We'll sit here and you just, it's like a mile, maybe a mile and a half. So I'm like, okay, sounds good. So I break off and I'm going, I leave everything with my bow and I get up there, do a belly crawl for maybe 100, 200 yards and I'm elbows, skull dragging, as they say in the Army. And I get up to this berm of this stock dam and I look up and every single goat that was there is in the bowl of the stock dam. So none of them can see out and nobody can see them from the road. Wow. And so I'm like, this is as good as it will ever get. So I get up to the edge of this berm. You know how stock stands have the two hills. I get up to one of the hill on the outside, and I'm tall enough that I can just peek over, and I see every single goat in there drinking water. And the buck is standing broadside to me, facing the road, directly in front of me. So I'm like, rangefinder, pull out my rangefinder. The first reading I get says none other than 39 yards. I look at my watch, and it is 8:05. And I went, holy crap. This is exactly how this is the dream I had. This is God saying, like, yes, you're in the right spot, keep going. I range again, and my rangefinder says 63 yards. And I go, okay, I shouldn't have second guessed myself. I should have just gone with the first range. But now that I know there's two different ranges and they're so wide in variety, I need to verify. So I'm assuming I was shaking so badly from this being like everything that I wanted it to be that I was ranging at a bad spot and I was getting 63 yards. Me being the dummy that I am, adjusted my sight to 63 yards. Pull back, everything's perfect. I feel great. I'm steady as a rock. I'm no longer shaking. I put my floater right on his heart. I'm right at where the white meets the brown. Everything's perfect, calm. I take a deep breath. Boom, shot breaks. And I'm just waiting to watch. Like, it's in slow motion. Like, I can see it like slow-mo. And the arrow flies and hits a foot over its back. And I'm like, oh, it was 40 yards. It was 40 yards. I'm an idiot. I can't believe I'm an idiot. So I'm like, I drop down and 15 of the goats sprint and they're gone. The 5, including the buck, stop. And they're like, okay, what's happening right now? Don't really know. So the buck kind of trots towards the backside of the stock pond. So I'm like, okay, no big deal. So I range it again, 63 yards. And I'm like, absolutely, this is an egregious mistake that I've made. I can't believe this happened. So I'm like, 63 yards, go, sights already set there, put another arrow in, pull back. Everything sits great. Pull through the trigger, perfect shot again. The buck hits the ground, ducks the whole shot. I don't even get air. And so I'm like, I cannot believe that just happened. Like, so I go pull both my arrows. Sure enough, no hair, no blood, no nothing. Throw them back in the quiver, start to walk all the way back. Well, all of the people that are sitting at the road watching me are like walking towards me to meet me because they're like, yeah, we brought your bag. Like, we're going to go gut this goat. And I was like, nope. And my one buddy's like, what do you mean you missed? And I was like, I missed. Like, you ever seen Daddy Daycare?
I have. Yeah.
That scene where the kid comes out of the bathroom, he's like, I missed. What do you mean you missed? Like, what do you mean you missed? And then Eddie Murphy opens the door and like, oh, it's like just sheer horror. That's what it was like for me. I was like, I missed, man. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I missed. Like, I ignored my instincts because there's no way, like, looking back, there's no way that was a 63-yard shot. But I was so excited and amped up, I didn't listen to myself. So then I pull out Onyx again and I do the little line tracker and I track where I was standing and I draw a line to where the goat was standing. And sure enough, it's 39 yards. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I should have followed that first one. And so the rest of the day is just a mess. I mean, my buddy, we ended up dropping my buddy and my 2 buddies off at a place, and he went mule deer hunting, and me and my other buddy went and knocked on a couple people's doors to see if we could make stocks on their property, and we couldn't do that. So it ended up just being a bust. And I was just beating myself up so hard about it because it was a huge goat. I mean, it was just massive, and it would have definitely been an amazing first feed goat to have. So then fast forward to middle of the season, November. It was probably the teens sometime in November, right before rifle season started. And that's kind of not really my deadline, but that's when I stopped hunting as hard because after rifle season, the deer in our area are kind of skittish and it's not huge importance to get out.
Yeah, understandably. Okay.
So I get out and it's a horribly windy day. And the only reason I was out is because it was the weekend before rifle season, or the day or the week before rifle season. So it's like every day I have to be out because rifle season hits, everything goes to crap. So I'm sitting there and I haven't been in the stand for 20 minutes and it starts snowing. And I'm like, okay, no big deal. I'm gonna cover, I'm good. It's cold, but I'll be fine. And then the wind picks up and it's blowing probably 25, 30 miles an hour. Everything's shaking and snowing, and then it's not snowing and it's snowing. I look up maybe 100 yards back, there's 4 does that stand up out of this slough, and they just kind of start chilling there. And I'm like, oh, definitely worth it. It's been a great day. Like, I'm seeing deer. And then the does kind of all simultaneously turn their heads in the same direction. And so I follow it, and I'm like, oh, there's another doe. Like, that's perfect. And then the doe sprints, and what's following her is not a doe. It is a huge 4x4, maybe 5x5. And if you can tell how unsure I am, it's kind of foreshadowing the story a little bit. So I watched this deer for 25 minutes. He is within 60 yards of me for 25 minutes. And after the antelope fiasco, I'm like, there's no way I'm taking a 65-yard shot, especially in this wind. Like, I'm just not confident to do that with this crosswind. So I'm watching this buck, and he bred this doe. I have it all on film. It's the coolest film that I think I have. He bred this doe 6 or 7 times, just following her around. He'd sniff her, she'd stop, he'd mount, do his thing, get off, she'd walk a little ways, and they just did this whole trail. And so I'm like, okay, well, he's at 30 yards, I was at 25, and I'm like, okay, 20 yards. He's at 20 yards, he's gonna cross this path right where the doe did, 18 yards. So I'm like, adjust the camera, I pull back, I'm at full draw. So I'm in what we call a mobile ground blind. It's basically a gravity feeder, a gravity wagon like farmers used to haul corn around in, that we built like a tower on top of. So it looks just like a gravity wagon, but it's all enclosed with wood, and we have windows and everything, and there's a roof. And so I am shooting the Darton Maverick XT, which is a 33-inch axle-to-axle bow. I am 6'4". My head does not touch the roof of the blind. But what I found is when I draw my bow back and I put my bow up, it hits the rafters in the blind. And so I pull back, I'm on this butt, and as I'm dropping to get that pin set, my top cam hits the rafter. In doing so, my bow pops up, my finger punches the trigger, and I sail that arrow over that guy's back. And the worst part is it was so windy, he didn't hear anything. He didn't know that I had shot at him. There's nothing going on in his body. He just kept following this doe into a very, very thick willow patch. So for the next 30 minutes, I had to watch him in this willow patch, maybe 40 yards from me, maybe, and just kind of hang there, standing up as this doe beds down and stands up and then sits down and then walks around. And so I just had to sit there for the next 30 minutes and watch this buck in horror as I'm like, I cannot believe I missed 2 amazing creatures in one season, just like reminiscing about how, like, what is going on with me this year. Like, and I was, the worst part is, like, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but up until this point, I had missed 1 other animal. That was it. And it was like my 3rd or 4th year hunting, and it was this massive 5x5 that came in out of nowhere. And I drew back, and as I was settling the pin, I accidentally pumped the trigger and sent one over his back. And then he circled around and gave me another shot, and he jumped the string on that one. And I just remember calling my dad crying because I was, 12 or 13 years old, and I just missed the biggest buck that I've ever seen, let alone had an opportunity to shoot. And I just remember sitting there going, oh my goodness, I have the same feeling right now. I just want to call my dad crying, but I can't because I'm a man now and I don't have a good excuse. But that was devastating.
That's tough, man. But that's kind of the nature of archery, right? Like, even eventually you're gonna miss, and you just kind of hope for a clean miss, because it's gonna happen.
Yep. And that's kind of my last season. I named missed opportunities because I can fault nobody but myself. The Lord has provided me many good opportunities over the years, and I've been successful on a lot of them. This was kind of the year that it just didn't work out. And so I've been doing a lot of meditating and praying and just like, what are you trying to teach me in these moments of my personal failure? And I think I was just getting a little too cocky. I was getting a little too arrogant, and I think it was just a humbling season for me. And God just being like, "Hey, man, check yourself, bro. Like, you need to relax a little bit. You're not this big tough guy that you think you are. You need to relax."
Yeah. You know, I've always stood by this one saying, which is like the best lessons are always self-taught. So, you know, you and God, whatever, you guys learned a lesson in that season.
Yes.
So it's something you'll never forget, right? Ever. Like, what's funny is I've been doing this podcast for a while now, almost a year. And more often than not, these stories come down to the one that got away. Like, those are the ones that are often more memorable than the 30th deer that they've killed. It's the one that got away. So
That is true. That is true.
yeah. Well, Ben, man, this was fun. I know you said that was the last one, so why don't we wrap this thing up? Let me share one more time where the people can find you. Let's go with that.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. They are all at Sodak Horizon. Yeah, check it out, subscribe, follow along, drop me a message. You brought up Cold Shot Challenge. I'm gonna do a quick plug for that if that's okay.
Of course.
Cold Shot Challenge is a brainchild between myself, Brian from State Rats, and then Justin from Bloodline Archery. And it's a sweet event that helps you connect with people all across the country, actually across the world. We've had two people from Australia. So we call ourselves worldwide now. A couple people from Canada. So I mean, we get around the world. But basically, what you do is you get partnered up randomly in a 32-man bracket with a shooter. You shoot one shot at our target face. It has to be your first shot of the day with a bow hunting setup, and it's kind of a loose definition because like I run a 15-inch front bar on my antelope bow, and so that's my hunting setup. So it's not like a hard line anywhere, but no magnifiers in sights. You have to use things that are legal to hunt with in just about every state. So no magnifiers, no lenses, no nothing like that. But you and your partner pick the distance. After that, you guys both take your first shot of the day at that distance on Instagram Live, and whoever's closest to center moves on. And you do that until there's only one person left. So I think we're going on year 4 of that. And to be honest with you, this year, Justin from Bloodlines Archery has kind of been pulling the weight. I started a new job, and then Brian from State Rapids kind of has some personal issues going on. And so Justin has stepped up and graciously said he will be running that for foreseeable future. And I do chime in and help out when I can, but we're always looking for ways to make it simpler and easier. But it's really just a really good way to grow the community. It's a good way to connect with people in your area, out of your area. I think a couple of people have actually become close enough friends that they're sloppy hunts, so they're going to each other's state and doing hunts with each other. So it's a really cool event. And you can also find it at Mountain Archery Fest. If you're at any Mountain Archery Fest event, they do a cold shot challenge every morning. So it's another cool way to earn prizes and stuff like that. So if you're interested, awesome, DM me, DM Bloodlines Archery, or probably just us two for now, because State Rats is taking the seat for a little while. So definitely fun to get in on.
And and I'll put links to all that stuff in the show notes. And actually, so the Cold Shot Challenge I saw last year, I think it was Redbeard Outdoors, and was Armando doing it last year? I feel like he was.
Yes.
Yeah. So I saw those guys on social media, and I was like, wow, this is a cool event. I was like, I want to get involved with this. And then luckily, I think some people canceled out, and I ended up getting the last spot this year. That being said, proud to say, at least on the Bloodlines bracket, because I don't know about your bracket, because I know there are the two different sides. I was the first person to go forward to the second round. So I'm just going to toot my own horn here for a second. But yeah, no, it's a super cool event, super fun. The person that I competed with, Tim, him and I have actually contacted each other back and forth a couple times now. And hopefully I'm going to get Tim on the podcast to tell some stories. And who knows, maybe someday I'll head up to Pennsylvania and do some hunting with him. We'll see.
Well, I made a deal with the guy that I'm shooting against this bracket. And I told him that if he shoots a bear, then he's at bear camp right now. Like, if you shoot a bear, you go to the next round of the bracket. Fun plug on that too. I have never made it past the first round of this bracket.
Oh yeah.
And I've been shooting it for 4 years. And I mean, I'm not in it to go on to the next round. I'm really just in it to facilitate. So I don't want to say you get a freebie with me, because I 100% try to shoot as good as I possibly can every single time. And for whatever reason, every time I go live, I just suck every single time. So I always say, if you get paired up with me, you pretty much got a freebie, because I just suck when that live goes on. I don't know why.
That's
I
funny,
just turn
man. That's
into
funny.
a
Yeah,
blind
the
guy.
gentleman I got teamed up with, he made it to the Elite Eight in your last bracket, so I was a little concerned that you guys put me in with a little bit of a ringer, but I managed to pull it together. I don't think either one of us had great shots, but mine was just slightly less bad. So, either way, Tim, I know I'm speaking to Tim, who's actually the person I just shot with. He actually told me he just started listening to my podcast, and so Tim, good shooting today, man. It was a lot of fun. Now, Ben, thank you, man. I appreciate it, buddy. Those were some great stories, and I'm glad I got to tell one of my own as well. And you're welcome back anytime, man. Whenever you got more fun stories to tell, please, give us a ring.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to it. I should have some good ones this season because I got an elk tag, so I'm going to go elk hunting for the first time, and
Hell yeah! What state?
hopefully tag out some antelope. South Dakota.
Oh, awesome! Good for you, man.
I got
Cool.
I got an antlerless tag this year and one of 40 in the unit that I'm in. So I'm gonna go try to get me a cow elk for some meat and experience the elk woods for the first time in South Dakota.
Good for you, man. Good for you. I'm still waiting on the Colorado draw. It's the only state that I have any options left. But assuming they don't cut too many tags due to the winter, I think I got a pretty good chance of drawing a special tag this year. So either way,
Awesome.
thanks again, Ben. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, we'll have you back soon, I am sure.
Absolutely, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. All right, guys, that's it. Another couple stories in the books. I want to thank Ben for coming on the podcast. Ben, it was a pleasure getting to meet you. It was great to hear your stories. I'm sorry it took so long to finally connect, but thank you for coming on and sharing your stories with all the listeners. As for you listeners, thank you guys again for tuning in. And as usual, go out there, share the podcast, get more people reaching out to us so we can hear some more crazy stories like the ones we heard today and from many of our previous episodes. But beyond that, make sure you go to my Instagram and check out the giveaway that we're doing for the 1-year anniversary. It's really simple. Basically, just share it with some friends and follow us, and boom, you're done. And then beyond that, one other side note I want to add today is that I actually set up a link for Black Ovis. So I'm going to this thing. And so if you go on any kind of hunting gear, they put a link in a small cutback. Help me offset some of the costs. That's it, guys. If you don't use it, no big deal. I'm not going to be upset, but I figured I might as well throw it out there. So, guys, thank you again. I really do appreciate it. Now get out there and make some stories of your own.